everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective for the week of December 2nd, 2018. I am your host, Drew, and I am joined by my favorite handheld system, Will.
Hi, Drew.
Will, how the hell are you, man?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You know, we got a lot of great stuff going on. It's been a busy week for me. I know it's been a busy week for you.
Oh,
you know, I'm really excited about this episode.
So am I, man. We have a great guest on today.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. This is our first time having a guest. I know, when we first started talking about doing this show, one of the things that we wanted to make sure was to bring in some of our closest friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an opportunity to do that. We'll bring him in just a moment, but I just want to get our business out of the way real quick.
Certainly.
How we have social media everywhere. So if somebody's listening to us and they're like, hey, I want to follow you guys on social media, at WDGR Podcast is the way to do it.
Indeed. Yeah, we are on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Twitter. It's pretty much the same handle for everything at this point.
That's right. And don't forget to subscribe to this show on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, Spotify. We're on Spotify. Just look for this podcast, Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a review. Do us a great service. It would help us because we want to take over the iTunes charts. I mean, the only way we can do it is with your help.
Yeah, I think we just have to top, I don't know, is it Tekashi 69? Is it Katy Perry? I don't know who's on top right now, but we'll get there.
We will. I have faith. Well,
so do I.
We'll keep the business nice and short today because we got a lot to talk about. We are bringing in somebody that both you and I have known for a very, very long time. Damian, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being a part of this with us today.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm pretty fucking well, man. I am so excited to be on here, and I'm humbled and honored to be a guest because, you guys are my bros, but more importantly, you guys are doing something great, and I'm here to be part of it. Yeah, dude,
thanks, man.
No problem at all.
Well, one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on is because you're doing something great as well, too. You've been very creative on the Twitch side of things.
Yes.
So can you tell us just real quick, how can somebody reach you on Twitch? How can they find you on Twitter? All that stuff.
Well, I try and keep it simple. It's Saikoro, like gaming dice, Saikoro, and it's Saikoro _Twitch for my Twitch, and Saikoro _shares for my Twitter.
That's
a lot of interesting things on that. So
shares with an S, SHARE. I had actually. How the fuck do you spell that?
SHAREZ. No, it's shares, like plural.
Jesus Christ, Drew.
It's been a long day. I'm on my third beer. I got a fourth one ready.
That rests my
he'll
case.
listen up shortly, guys.
Now, Damian, Saikoro, just for folks that don't know, is that like a Japanese term?
Yeah, it's that came from something interesting. I was looking for a Japanese style name for when I was playing Phantasy Star Online, so I consult my Japanese English dictionary, and I was on the letter S, one of my favorite letters, and I see Saikoro. I'm like, oh, it means die. Oh, my name means death. Well, I have ended up talking to somebody in a Japanese server, and they're like, nah, man, it means game dice. And that was in 99, and it's stuck since.
That's so cool.
That's a great name.
Yeah,
it really is.
I've always been fond of Saikoro. It just has it rolls off the tongue nicely. It's better than Poison Storm, that's for sure.
Scion Storm, bro. But no, I will say, though, you could actually go on Amazon, and there's like a Saikoro Dice Caramel Chews. You could actually look it up. It's
my word.
I'm
like
on this.
Mini dice. Yeah, do it.
Pre-order in progress.
Let's see. American Saikoro Explicit by Demon Dice. Saikoro God does not play
like
dice. What?
Like caramel chews or something like that.
How can I get a bulk order?
Have you ever tried them?
No, I have not, but I should get around to it. But it's like I'm feeling like I'm eating myself.
Oh my gosh. Well,
goodness.
that happened.
Man, he's so caramelly. Oh my god.
So Damian, before we get into what you're doing right now, I kind of want to jump backwards and kind of talk about how you started your whole life with video games.
Oh man, wow. So God, you're opening up a can of worms here. I'm thinking back.
Exactly.
No, it's
That's
great
what we
because
want.
I'm trying to paraphrase because a literal face just spawned in my head. I'm trying to think. It was back when I was in California, when I was I think 6 years old, and I had these two really interesting friends, Alberto and Wayne. They were two really cool kids, my closest friends back then. And I swear their parents were drug dealers, dude, because they always had the best technology. Like if you guys, anybody listening, if you remember back in the day of VCRs, you if you had a standard VCR, it took like 2 minutes to rewind a tape.
Yep.
Sure.
Theirs rewound in like 30 seconds.
Wow.
They always had the newest tech. They like, and I remember going into their living room and like to the left, tucked away in the corner, one of their relatives was playing Mario Brothers. I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. I watched it, and months later, when it was my birthday, my stepfather's like, what do you want? And I'm like, I want a Nintendo. He goes, no, you're not getting a Nintendo. So when I moved back to Connecticut, and my father was really happy to have me back, he goes, what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, I want a Nintendo. And I got one. And I got the system with the Super Mario Duck Hunt pack-in.
Mm-hmm.
And he got me like Godzilla, I think. It was, that and Godzilla. That was the second NES game I've ever played was Godzilla. It sucks, but it's like, many games that we grew up with. It's pretty special to me. It's my second gaming experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Very
awesome,
cool.
man. So before this, though, then Nintendo was your actual first exposure to video games.
Yes, it was. And on a side note, my neighbor upstairs at the time, Jason, had a lot of Nintendo games, and he's the one who introduced me to Contra and showed me all the tricks.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Is this Ferenz?
No, not Jay Ferenz. I remember, the thing about me is I think I have like a specific eidetic memory. Like I remember certain things as if they were yesterday, and I remember exactly what he looks like. Dude, I gotta show you Contra, I'll bring it down. And he's like, this is where you jump, this is 30 lives code, you want the spread gun, watch this is where you stand. Like,
Those are the best kind of experiences, man.
Yeah. Oh, and also too, my aunt, see, all the things are coming back to me now. My aunt had this like, the awesomest loser boyfriend ever. Because like, he had like one of those like plaid.
Sense?
Yeah, it does. He had like a plaid smoking jacket. Like he wore that, and he had like a t-shirt, and like he wore jeans and sneakers, and he was a huge nerd.
Did he drive like a 18-wheeler?
He probably did, or like a fucking like Geo from like 1976.
He's like, here, have this bag of Lay's. Have this bag of pork rinds.
And as you eat this bag of pork rinds, I'll show you how to beat Mario Brothers. Like he showed me all the tricks to beat Mario Brothers, man. He showed me all the warp pipes in stage 8-4. He showed me all the the warp zones. He showed me how to get all those. Like it's really interesting because, and not plugging my stream, but like whenever I talk to people in the chat, and we talk about nostalgia like this, the conversations we have are awesome. It's like here, like all these memories are starting to flood you. And again, you got to paraphrase on what you're talking about. You know?
Indeed.
Yeah, those are my earliest gaming memories. Was the Nintendo with Mario Brothers Duck Hunt and Godzilla and Contra, man. And playing Batman till 4 a.m. with my aunt trying to beat it, renting stuff from the video store. Oh my God, so many things coming back to me. Great.
That's interesting. I think, Drew, if you remember our first episode, I talked about my earliest gaming memories, and they were very similar with the Mario Duck Hunt cartridge.
Yeah.
Were you surgically open games out of the hidden spot in the closet?
Oh, God, don't remind me. My mom still doesn't know about that.
Wait, what?
And she probably never.
Oh,
will.
yes.
Yeah, I don't even know how I had access to like a razor blade, so let's not even go there.
Yeah, and how old were you?
I don't even know, man. Whatever. Let's see, this was 1996, so...
Old enough not to have a razor blade.
Exactly. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. So, Damian, after the NES, like, what was the next step for you?
Well, let's see. Oh, my God. So now I'm thinking back. The Game Boy came out, and everybody in grade school had one, and they were all, like, dicks about it. I'm like, hey, Mike Cassini, he had a Game Boy, and he would lean against, like, the side of the school and play it. And always be playing Tetris. I'm like, let me try that. He goes, no. I'm like, well, okay.
Typical kid.
So I was trying to save up, and I remember, like it was yesterday, I was living on a hilltop in Ansonia. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And I had $40, and my uncle came over to help with whatever, and he really knew I wanted a Game Boy, so he gave me $35, and he goes, let's go get your Game Boy. So we went to get it, and I had the Tetris pack in, and thinking forward, the best memory I have of the Game Boy, actually, was I had the Handy Boy attachment. Now, if anybody listening remembers, it was the magnifying screen with the backlight that you could turn on with the fold-out speakers.
Oh, yeah.
And I would play Metroid 2 until, like, midnight on a school day, like, until I beat it. So, like, my mom's like, good night, son. I'm like, good night, Mom. I love you. I'd close the door. I'd turn on my Game Boy, and I would put my headphones on.
You bad boy, you.
Yep. So, yeah, it's interesting how, like, just thinking of gaming brings back so many memories. Say the same thing about like music, especially in Drew's case.
Yeah.
And, with like Will and I with movies, because we're huge movie buffs. Like you think of like Benjamin Button or Saving Private Ryan or The Terminator, and you're brought back to that point in time when you first.
I think that's a really good point too. You know, like
Yeah.
when we're younger, both going through like our childhood and as well as our teenage years, there's always going to be something artistic that you associate with certain moments in your life. Now, as you get older, once you hit your 30s and 40s and whatnot, I think that happens less and less. But like I have vivid memories of listening to albums and associating them with very specific points in my life. You know, it's amazing. And that happens with gaming too.
Yeah, and people overlook that in the day and age of like the smattering of games that come out, which, don't get me wrong, you know, there's plenty for everybody, but when you stop and think, like you guys are talking about like, you know, open world fatigue or like so many things to play or watch, like we don't go on Netflix to watch a movie, we fucking surf what's available, and then by the time we're done, an hour went by, you know what I mean?
That's it.
With gaming, like, you know, everything is so easily accessible, it's all drowned out. So while there are good games out there, like Horizon Zero Dawn, there's also another 50 out there that, you know, you overlook Horizon Zero Dawn. And then, like, years later, you go back, you're like, what the fuck? I missed this?
Yeah. When did this come out? You know, like, you ask yourself those kind of questions.
Like, speaking of Horizon, like, I've been going back to that game again, trying to beat it, right?
50% after 2 years?
Actually, I hit 60%, but
good, nice.
But
man.
I was looking at the amount of time I put in that game, and I've put in around 60 hours.
Wow.
What a gorgeous game, too, Drew.
Oh my god, I love this game. Like, I definitely kind of feel like open world fatigue with it, but my god, that game is just, it is so perfect in every way that it doesn't matter. I want to keep playing it.
That's good, and it's so rare.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it was with me and Doom. And, you know, Drew was egging me on forever to play it, and goddamn was it good. But it was one of those few games that you want to go through again.
Yeah.
You know, like you want to immediately start the campaign over and pick up all the missed things that, you know, you overlooked when you were playing it.
Doesn't happen very often these days.
No, it really doesn't.
Like you said, with the smattering. I really like that.
Yeah. Well, there's just too much. But, I mean, you know, companies have to make their money and they have to appeal to people. But, you know, I guess it's give and take with that, just like with anything.
Yeah.
So let's see here. So we went from the NES to the Game Boy. Was it Super Nintendo after that, or
no? Actually, it was a Sega Genesis because you know everybody wanted the Sega Genesis. It was advertised everywhere, and I remember my grandmother surprised me. I still have the picture of my genuine reaction when I tore the wrapping paper off of it. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, dude. And the hilarity is, you know, back when it was Polaroids or like disposable cameras, whatever, your parents always bought those for like parties, right?
Yep.
My aunt's index finger is on like the top right-hand corner of that freaking. But the hilarity was me, right? My cousin Sergio, which it's sad I don't see him much anymore, but we were tight when we were kids, and we played so many things together. And in that picture, you see me like grinning into the microphone as I am now, like, oh, I got a Sega Genesis. And you look at my cousin directly next to me, it looks like he's in shock, like he saw a train wreck. He's like, oh my God. And you know, in his brain, he was like, why not me?
Yeah.
Why didn't I get it, damn it? So like 2 months later, my uncle forced my grandmother to buy it for her. But the point being is I had the Sega Genesis, and then, God, so many good Sega Genesis games. Like my cousin Sergio actually got Sonic the Hedgehog 2 before me. And I remember crying because I was jealous of him getting it before me. And I was like, Mom, what's Sonic the Hedgehog? And then my dad got it.
Those were the days.
But yeah, dude, that was back when also we used to go to Toys R Us and pick out those leaflets. And we'd bring it to the checkout. It was actually behind that plexiglass wall where they warehoused all the games. You know? Those were the days, man. God
bless, man.
It's your birthday, man. Let's go get a game, son. Yay, Toys R Us.
Rip Toys R Us.
I know, it's sad. I was choked up when I found out that they were closing. I was like going in that store every day looking for a deal for the last week they were open.
Bringing that ticket to that magical window was like the highlight of my life.
Yeah.
Just the walk.
Yeah, like you know, now you go into a store and you take the game off the shelf, and you know, if you're lucky, like somebody has to go get a key, and like that magic is gone. But like taking that ticket out of that leaflet holder and walking to the register, paying for it, and then they send you over there. They stamp the ticket, right, or something like that, I think. And then you go over to that magical window, and he's like, "How can I help you, young lad?"
The suspense and excitement.
What are you selling? You know?
Yeah. basically.
I'll buy it at that price.
God, man.
Yeah,
I cherish those moments.
And that's the magic of gaming, man. Is I call it gamer speak. I say it all the time when I'm talking to people, when I'm live and whatnot. It's a gamer speak, and all of us nerds and everybody listening can totally relate to it. You know, they just most of them won't admit it, but you know, in their head, they're. as we're saying it.
Takes courage to admit that suspense of the walk of the leaflet to the plexiglass counter man.
Or like crying during movies. I don't cry during movies. You know?
Sometimes that walk with the ticket in your hand was better than the actual game.
Oh, it
Fuck
was.
yeah.
Yeah, because you were reliant on your parents to get you stuff. Like, back that was what was great about gaming back then, because you were like restricted to like maybe 3 or 4 games a year, 5 if you were lucky, but that's when you played the shit out of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you mastered that game. We don't do that anymore because we have so much at our fingertips.
You were always like a couple steps ahead of your parent too. Like you were never like behind your parent. You were always a couple steps ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, come on. That like every kid has said that. Mom, come on.
Mom, come on, let's go.
Hurry. They're waiting for us.
Who's they? Just them. Let's go. Come on.
Don't worry about it. Like, just come on. I've got the ticket. I guess it was like a real life Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, except this time it wasn't in like a sewer drain.
It literally was a golden ticket. And, you guys, Will was saying that, you're always a step ahead. And like, that was even when your parents asked you what you wanted. Like, right before the question was over, like right when they asked, like, what do you want? Just boom. Your brain was already like, I want this for Nintendo, or I want that for whatever. Like you always were a step ahead of them. Cause it's like any trope with parents, like they're, the fuddled, like, lost people, and the kids are really the ones who are doing it all. Like, it's like the Goonies, right? Like the Goonies, like the kids found the treasure, man. The parents are like, well, what's going on? I brought you pizza.
Troping.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I had the foresight back then to recognize when a system was being discontinued.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, I remember going to Toys R Us, and, like, I didn't even have a Sega Genesis, but they had 32Xs boxed up, and they were selling them for $5 a piece.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no.
32X, that is such an underappreciated system in every respect. It is.
And, it just didn't occur to me that, like, that would be something that would be difficult to find, with all the wires and everything in 2018. I had no concept of that. Or, like, TurboGrafx games.
Oh, yeah,
I remember when Toys R Us was liquidating that stuff, and it's like, if I had the disposable income and the wherewithal of what was happening, I would have like insisted that my parents buy me every game on that shelf plus a Turbo Duo.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, the 32X had like a shit library, but there was a lot of reasons behind that. But there's only like really 3 or 4 good ones on it. The rest
Yeah. I don't know. It's just missed opportunities, I think, more than anything.
Well, from the collector's point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, Well, look at dude like our buddy Dave. I mean, you guys must have him on one day because he's great, and he's one of those dudes who just finds everything at fucking tag sales. Like, he'll just randomly text us. He's like, "Guys, I found like a mint edition 32X in the box with like 50 games for like $5." We're like,
how
do you do this? Like, is there a formula? And usually it's Virginia, his mom, who finds him. It's not even him.
See, the thing with any of this stuff, like when I was going to Goodwill every day, I was finding some great stuff. You mean
our fellow host here, or the store?
that went over my head and came back around and just smacked me in the face.
It took me a second or two as well. The store, but just to clarify, the store. Like the trick with those places or even tag sales is you have to go to as many as possible, and for every success, you don't hear about the 5 or 10 failures that they have before that.
Oh no, everything's glorified on. Come on,
it absolutely is. Like I'm in a couple groups on Facebook, for retro gaming, and I mean I love seeing what people post, but it's very easy to get envy. Oh man, check out this epic haul! I got 42 systems and 360 games for $50 in a Snickers bar, and I'm like, why couldn't that have been me? But then again, I'm not putting myself out there and getting that stuff. Like if you don't go looking for it and strike out a bunch, you're not going to get it.
If you build it, they will come.
Some people, like, that's all they do. Like it's like their part-time job.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of those guys in that group do, they collect, but they also resell.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. They're
Gouging.
scalpers. Yes, scalpers and gouging, man. Just on a side note, I want to touch on the dark side of that for a second, because I bought a box of Transformers for like $5. It was like, who was it? Like Optimus Prime and Megatron. Well, not Megatron, he's awesome, but like Soundwave. And they weren't in really good condition, so me being the intricate and neat freak that I am, I'm like, they're dirty, I need to clean them up. Well, in all of the joints in these figures, there was like dead spider webs everywhere. Like, ugh.
Oh,
So that took like an
God.
hour to clean just a couple of them out. That was
Air duster.
No, dude, this was like caked on like cobwebs. I had to
Yeah.
like get a Q-tip with rubbing alcohol and just like swab away. Disgusting.
That's the worst.
Slobbing with
That's
Q-tips.
That's never happened. With
Is that the
gaming,
episode
thank
name,
God.
Drew? Did we just make that
Slobbering
happen?
with Q-tips?
I think we might have. I feel like for the episode name, we really should probably put like slobbing with Q-tips with Saikoro.
that has a jingle
That's
to
it.
by the way.
That's it. Run it.
I'm writing it down.
Do
now.
it live. We're doing it live.
Oh goodness. All right. So Damian,
Yeah.
trying to figure out where the best way to go with this next is I still want to kind of weave through your gaming history. So we've gone from Nintendo to Game Boy to Genesis.
Yeah, now the Genesis is fun because I had a lot of gaming memories with that. Most notably Mortal Kombat because of Blood Code.
Yeah, so I
That
want to
was
talk
awesome.
to
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about Mortal Kombat because
Oh,
that was
man,
one of the
dude.
first games that you and I played together.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, and the funny thing about that was I knew nothing about it, and my cousin Sergio, when we were always hanging out together, like my uncle would literally, looking back, he dumped him on my mom as many times as possible. But
Yeah.
as a kid, you're like, oh my god, wow, like we used to hang out together all the time. Like
Right.
he would spend half of my summer vacation with me, which was great, and that's where we gamed a lot.
Yeah.
And he brought over some magazine, I think it was EGM, and he's like, dude, there's this game, Mortal Kombat. And there was that original flyer that Midway put out. It was the original dragon. And it was the 7 characters, the 7 playable characters. From left to right, it was Johnny Cage, Kano, Raiden, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Sonya Blade, and Liu Kang.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
And
wow.
yeah,
What a memory.
and well, that's not in order. But
I can't
that's
remember
pretty
what I
close.
did 5 minutes ago, Damian. What the fuck?
You came up
We're
with a name
recording a
for the
podcast.
show.
That's
So,
right.
he's
Thanks,
like,
Drew.
dude, this game's really awesome. It's really violent. And of course, me, I swear I was like Japanese or Asian in a former life because I was immediately drawn to Sub-Zero and Scorpion.
Mm.
And, Mortal Monday happened. That was the huge multi-billion-dollar advertising campaign that Midway had. And I had the Sega Genesis version, of course. We rented it from the video store, and I was blown away but just by how good it was. I mean, looking back, the Sega Genesis conversion was okay because of the hardware, but it had the blood code. What, ABACABB you put in at the prompt screen. And we went nuts over that. And, of course, Dave and I played the living shit out of it. And, then the sequels came out, and that's when we were at the arcades. And, man, seeing that game run on arcade hardware, like, I remember performing a fatality for the first time. I lost my shit. It was just so awesome. And that's one of those magical games from my childhood because I played it so much, and there's so many good memories from it.
Such a violent game, too.
Oh, well, it really was. I mean, to today's standards, it's kind of subpar, but that was really the first game that put the ratings rating system on the box. The what was it? What was the name of that?
The
It was all
ERSP.
about Yeah, the ERSP was
Yeah.
created because of Ed Boon and Company. That's insane.
Yep.
That's totally insane. But dude, I still remember all the moves. I still remember all the combos and like all the little secrets and all that stuff. It's fun. Of course, the arcade version is the best, but the Sega Genesis is fantastic.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
the Sega Genesis version ended up being just overall better than the Super Nintendo version.
Oh yeah,
It was like the
because
flagship.
Mhm.
It was, yeah. Well, I mean, the same. Unfortunately, the same couldn't really be said about Mortal Kombat 2. I think
No.
Super Nintendo got a better deal on that, mostly because of controller.
Mm.
No, it wasn't. Well, the controller was much better on the SNES, but like it was the fact that the SNES version had the sweat instead of blood and everything
From the
was, like,
first one,
altered. Yeah.
I didn't
And
even
the
know
second-
that.
Yeah, look it up.
So sweat instead of blood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was gray. It was gray instead of red.
Interesting.
Nintendo put their seal of approval on the game, basically.
Oh, they put it on.
I'm
every
sure. Yeah.
Stupid
you know.
love-hate relationship.
But I always felt like the Super Nintendo handled like the Street Fighter games better.
Oh,
than,
dude,
than
totally.
the Mortal Kombat.
That's
games.
true. I remember that.
Well, remember the Genesis was the faster, edgier system, and the Super Nintendo was the colorful, more like extravagant. So, like,
Yes.
if you were the cool kid, you had a Sega Genesis. If you were like the everybody kid, but like the everybody kid with character, you were a Nintendo kid. And it's interesting because I had the Sega Genesis for so long with all those games, and then that's when I was introduced to the Super Nintendo.
Mhm.
But they were both. It was like apples and oranges, really. It's like they were both great.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, like, I lived across the street from a friend, Eker and Jonathan.
Yep.
And they had the Genesis, and I had the Super Nintendo. Now, we would spend summers hanging out together, and one of the reasons I wanted the Super Nintendo was because they had a Genesis.
Yes.
I'm thinking to myself, well, we want to play Genesis, we just go to their house. We want to play Super Nintendo, we come over my house,
Mhm.
And we had that back and forth. Like we would each get different games on each system, and it was very much kind of like a collaboration, so to speak.
You don't have that camaraderie now at all.
No, you don't. Because I mean, the connectivity of the internet, like the way we're recording this here, it really has its benefits, but you can't beat that camaraderie you got from having everybody in the same room huddled together.
Well,
Dude, Justin, let me come over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, think about it. Like, what kind of lengths did you have to go through, Will, just to put together the game day that we had last month?
Oh, I mean, it was a project and a half. Checking with people's schedules. Who's sitting this cat, who's got this kid to take care of. Like, it was tough. It was really tough. It wasn't like back in the day where it's just like, hey, meet me at my house in 20 minutes.
Right.
And
right.
You got a couple BMX bikes laying on the fucking lawn.
Yeah,
bring some Doritos over.
It's like we got to check in with the wives and the girlfriends and such, and not that I'm complaining about that, but
no.
It is what it is. Like, the reality is, things are a lot different.
Well,
That's
it's like
man.
It's everything's give take. Like back then, we had unlimited time, but we had limited resources, and now it's the other way around. We have I mean, no matter how you look at it, differs, but your resources are what they are, and your time is so much limited.
Well, there was an upside to it too. I mean, like we had a fucking great day.
Oh, we did. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was worth it. It was worth the planning, and like it might take a while for it to happen again, but like so be it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So it was. Let's see. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead, man.
I was going to say the thing with the Sega Genesis was like the fondest memories I have of it are those exclusives, right? Because we all had like the ports, the arcade games, but it really was like all I really remember was like the Terminator, which was excellent, by the way, really short. The music was fantastic, and that's what I love about the Sega Genesis sound processor. It had that like synth beat to it. That even though the SNES had richer sound, like if you play the Terminator, it's short, but it's really good. But it literally sounds like you're playing the movie, like the opening title scene where the Terminator font is going around in the back. It sounds exactly like you're watching the film, and that was the appeal of the Genesis. It was the way it looked and sounded. Like it was a little washed out, but it was very edgy and cool, and that's what made the Sonic games. You know what I mean?
I feel like, at least in my opinion, the sound in the Genesis has not aged as well. I mean, just my taste for it. It sounds very muddy.
Yeah.
It sounds like Genesis soup. I mean, occasionally you'll get a game like Sonic, which is kind of bright and happy, but I feel like mostly overall, a lot of these developers just really didn't know how to harness that hardware.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yeah. It was. It certainly was an acquired taste. I mean, back then everything was great because kids. You look back, there's a handful of things that sound very good, but the best have aged gracefully.
Now it's like, oh, this isn't Dolby.
Yeah, it's not a where's my Astro headset adapter and my HDMI? Like, I don't have that stuff.
There's no optical port.
Oh god.
The Sonic games though, man. God, the Sonic and Knuckles lock on, the expansion cartridge, Sonic 3 with the battery backup, like those are really my fondest Sega Genesis memories. Like I could go on and on about those. They're just so freaking good. But I think Sonic 3 is my personal favorite, but as kids we all went nuts over Sonic the Hedgehog.
Was there a Game Genie for Sega?
I think
yes.
There was.
Yeah, there was.
Yes, there was. Where it like if you had if you had the Game Genie and then Sonic and Knuckles and then Sonic the Hedgehog 3, like you had a cartridge that was at least like 10 inches tall. It was hilarious.
And then you mount that on top of a Sega CD unit.
The Tower of Power. That's what they referred to it as.
Yeah, it really was. It was like
looking like an onion ring tower.
Dude, it was the size of your 55-inch TV.
Yeah,
it
was that tall. It was crazy because no matter what Sega Genesis model you had, actually the base one, I should say, the old school Model 1 Genesis, you had the Sega CD that sat under that, and then everything else that sat on top of it. Quite hilarious. A nice visual treat, but also a very scary visual treat because that shit could topple over.
Coasters. Jenga.
Yeah, it was Sega Jenga.
That's what comes to my mind.
So, Damian, one of the things that I tend to identify with you in gaming is fighting games.
Oh my god, fighting games!
So,
I love the accessibility and the if you want to play it for either 10 minutes or 10 hours, that's what I love.
So, I mean, you kind of spoke about Mortal Kombat. What else, really grabbed you as far as fighting games go?
Jesus, Soul Calibur and Tekken Tag Tournament, man. Soul Calibur and Tekken Tag Tournament. Soul Calibur, of course, we're jumping way ahead from the Genesis, so we're skipping over all the 16-bit stuff. But the Dreamcast version of Soul Calibur, oh my god! And we actually played that a lot on our past gaming night.
What a game!
Soul Calibur. Oh, I thought you said what game? Sorry, but yeah, Soul
Yeah,
Calibur.
no, what a game!
Absolutely, and it still holds up today. But we had the arcade version back then. That was the only way we could really experience it. And I never really was into it, except for when I saw Yoshimitsu on the time unlock, back when arcades didn't reveal everything immediately. They were on so long, I think it was after like every 150 hours character released. So it kept people coming back to the machine. So I'll never forget when I first saw Yoshimitsu in Soul Calibur. But that was when I was playing Tekken Tag Tournament like heavily. Like I was tournament good, and my main go-to was Yoshimitsu and Paul Phoenix at first, and then I got insanely good with Heihachi. So yeah, Heihachi and Yoshimitsu. So
why Yoshimitsu?
Well, he had a sword, and the very first memory of Tekken I have was I played it over my buddy Lazarus, and he was the first guy with a PlayStation. I would skip school and go to his house and play Tekken and Twisted Metal and Mortal Kombat 3 for hours. And I remember first playing Tekken, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. You know, you have the left and right limb system. It was very technical for its time. It was actually the answer to Virtua Fighter, because I think the original designer for Virtua Fighter left Sega and went to Namco. And it was originally called Rave War, believe it or not. That was the code name for it. And then they switched it to Tekken, which means Iron Fist.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I actually still have my very first issue of Next Generation, where they premiere all the consoles for the next lineup, dude. It goes from like PlayStation, Saturn, 32X, Turbo Duo CD, the PC Engine, the Ultra 64, etc. But
I need to look at that when you.
Yeah, dude, it's like you got it off the newsstand. That's the shape it's in. But alas, I remember playing as Kuma the first time because I thought it was a dude in a bear suit, which was actually a bear. Didn't know that. And I'm like, you know what? Let me try this dude with the sword. He looks like a devil ninja. And ever since then, I was hooked because not only the sword, but he had those spin moves.
So it's kind of like a visual thing. Like, this guy looks cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, back to Mortal Kombat, like, the ninjas immediately caught my attention. Oh my God, these guys look cool. But Yoshimitsu, man,
aesthetically.
Oh my God. He's the most played fighting game character I've ever had.
What a move list, too. I mean, for those of you that haven't played Tekken, what a difficult game. I mean, tell us, Damian, like, what makes Tekken a difficult game?
Well, the thing is you have your limb system, you know, left, right punch, left, right kick. And then if you want to do throws, it's both lefts or both rights. And then you could break throws with the same command. You have, like, multi-punch moves, so, like, both punches, both kicks. And then you have string moves. There's a thing called buffering where you could hold one button down and then input the command with the other, and it'll still activate. And the thing is everyone says Tekken is so complicated. Remember that Namco just kept building on the system that Tekken 1 established. So Tekken 1 is an example, like paraphrasing here. Yoshimitsu had like maybe 30 moves, right, between everything. And then Tekken 2 came out, he had 50 because they fleshed the system out. And then Tekken 3, he had like 75 to 80 moves. And then Tekken Tag was an expansion, so he had like 90 moves now. And then it just keeps growing and growing and growing with the way the system just keeps on evolving with all the subsequent games.
So would you say that it's kind of like a timing thing with the moves? Because I feel like it, like, even with Law, you know, for example, like he has one move that I believe is just 4 or 5 punches. And I feel like you have to hit them very rapidly in a very specific way with perfect timing. Otherwise, it just doesn't come out right.
Well, yeah, it was called just frame. So, like, if you wanted to perform a super specific move, you could reverse a reversal. So, like, you had to input the command on the first 3 frames of, like, a 20-frame move. Like, your timing had to be impeccable. But that's the thing about Tekken. I always called it, like, the chess variant of fighting games, at least up until Tekken Tag Tournament. Then Tekken 6 came out. Or no, Tekken 4 came out, and it just neutered the system. And then with like Tekken 6, it added that I hate the bound system because it took this super in-depth system that you really had to know the timing for. And it made it super flashy with like this combo extension that would drain like more than half of your life. So
juggles.
These really great movesets that were just neutered and, you know, put aside in the form of Flash. And that's when I started to hate Tekken from 6 going forward. So Tekken Tag Tournament will always be my favorite fighting game because how deep and rich it is. It's still really good to this day, no matter which version you play. There's a PlayStation 2 version, which looks great, but the arcade version still feels the tightest.
I remember very vividly when you were at the arcade in Milford.
Oh,
and I would be working over at Pretzel Time, and you'd stop in and you'd be like, "Hey man, I'm gonna go play Tekken. I'll be back. While you're on break or something." And this will be at like noon. And then at 4:00 I'd go on break and I'd be like, "Yo, Damian, where the hell have you been?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm still on the same 50 cents I had from before."
Yep. And that dude, there's a funny story with that. There was I can't remember the guy's name, but I will never forget what he looks like. He was this like big burly black dude, and we got along very well. And the guy, I swear, he spent at least $8 trying to beat me, and I got 50 wins in a row because of this guy. Like, it, not just him, but there was a bunch of others.
That's intense.
And I was at my 50th win, and he's like, "Dude, come on, I got to try you again." I'm like, "Dude, I got to go to work. Can you please let me beat the game because I want to save this high score?" So I was number one on the versus until timeout closed down. So
Ace, ACE, right?
Yes, Ace. I always had that as my initials. I don't know why I always put it in. Yeah, but dude, Tekken Tag Tournament, Jesus Christ. The tournaments I entered, I always ranked within the top 10. And there was a crew of people that we played together all the time. And the victor would be decided by either the timer or like by a sliver of health. That's how tight-knit we were.
Drew, did Damian ever come by Pretzel Time and steal the tips out of the tip jar when you weren't looking?
Hell no.
We didn't have a tip jar.
Oh, you didn't have one?
No.
I really liked the way that you removed that pre-buttered pretzel from the rotating thing. So I'm gonna a couple quarters in here that this guy's gonna steal later.
Yeah, put the quarters in the pretzels, guys.
He didn't need to though, man. Like it was no joke. Like I just stood there. I never Tekken was never my game. So like when Damian plays Tekken, I step away.
Yeah,
it's like here's the champion. Just bow down to the king.
Yeah, but you just find every excuse in the book to just like leave the room.
Exactly, but I would be standing in awe watching him as person after person just put quarters up and they would just get dropped.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
I remember watching you do that at Otakon, Damian.
Yeah, I actually, what was it? That's Soul Calibur, and the funny part about that was it was the GameCube version of Soul Calibur 2, and back in the day, we used to hang out with Elm a lot, and he goes, "Dude, I'll let you borrow the GameCube version. I imported it." And thankfully, he let me borrow it because the D-pad on the GameCube's controller was so small. It was the Game Boy Advance D-pad. Just put it in there. And that's how I practiced. And long story short, well, actually, no, let me not make it long. I remember I was dressed as Vega from Street Fighter, long nails and everything. And I sat down, and again, another guy, I'll never forget the way he looks. He was just like I guess he was Samoan or something, but he was.
We need names, Damian. I need addresses. I need blood type.
I'll do that after the show,
Let me get a social.
No.
Can we get a social? Like original copy? Not a copy. I want an original social.
I'll give you the digital copy. So I remember sitting down with him, and the guy had he was like me playing Tekken, right? He was at I think he was at 27 wins. And I was trying to play on the GameCube controller with long nails, and it didn't really work. So I picked Yoshimitsu, and he beat me. And I looked at him, I put my controller down, and I said, "Dude, if it wasn't for these nails, I would beat your ass." He goes, "Yo, whatever."
Excuses.
So I was yelled at by the Otakon staff because they're like, "You can't have your nipples showing." And I'm like, "Dude, there's a guy dressed as Gandhi from an anime wearing a diaper, and you're yelling at him." He goes, "No. We already yelled at him, so we talked to him. You need to go change." So I went back to my hotel room. I dressed up as the male lead from Resident Evil 0. Like I put black coloring in my hair. I did a quick tattoo job. Took the nails
off. Chris? Chris or Leon?
No, it was Resident Evil 0. Look that up. I never played it. I didn't like it, but it was. If you look at the box art, he's the character that you play with Rebecca. So.
Okay.
I came back dressed as this guy. I had a black tank top on, and I remember going back to that guy, and he had 40 wins. And I'm like, "Remember how I told you about my nails?" He goes, "Yep." Now he was using Ivy, and there's a specific chain you could do that is super cheap, and it'll take half your life. I figured it out, and I beat him on the first try. And everyone was like, "I've never seen anybody use Yoshimitsu like that before." So I entered the tournament for I think it was 2005. No, it was 2003. 2003 Otakon, and I was 9th place out of 350 people.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, the last person in the second to last bracket. I lost to Young Sun. Motherfucker. So yeah, Yoshimitsu between Tekken and Soul Calibur, he's always been my main go-to, and he's really good. There's a lot of cheapness to him, but he's he's a very technical character to use.
Drew has clearly felt that pain.
Oh yes. My god!
Yes, well, he has a lot of tracking moves. So
yeah, Damian and I have had some historic battles, not in Tekken, but in Soul Calibur.
Dude,
Will, you've gotten a brief flavor of that. The other,
he got the light brunt of it. That's just like the tip of the iceberg, man.
We would sit down and we would play that game for hours, and poor Vic and Vinci would be like, can we play? And we would both turn around and snap at them like, no, like we're not done. And it was like we would go back and forth. So Damian would beat me, and I'd get pissed, and I'd be like, no, fuck you. I'm gonna play you again. I'm gonna beat you. And then sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't. Yeah. And then he would be like, "Oh no, you're not stepping away. It's my turn." And this would go on, like we would just have like this blood feud in Soul Calibur for like hours and hours. Man.
All about Taki and Yoshimitsu all the way.
Yeah.
My gosh.
I'm a Kalik Mitsurugi fan, but you know what? For me, like with Soul Calibur, it was always about matching up against my opponent.
Yes. Sure.
Because I spent a ton of time with the first game, not as much time with this, the subsequent games. And I've become good with, I can play as every character. I'm really good with about a third of them, and I'm more than capable with like the other half.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the only fighting game I've ever been like that with.
I mean, what a cast of characters too. I mean,
yeah.
How do you feel about the characters, Damian? Do you feel like they're well-rounded and well-balanced?
Well, in the earlier games, yes. And I was going to say it's a lot like Tekken, right? Because Tekken, when it first came out, it was very grounded. It was literally chess in video game form. And Soul Calibur took that and sped it up because Tekken had left and right. It had the left string and the right string. Both punch, both kicks. Soul Calibur was about vertical, horizontal, kicking, and guarding. Because Tekken, if you wanted to guard or block, you would hold back. But Soul Calibur, it was like Mortal Kombat. It had a block button. And it also had the 8-way run system. So it really took what Tekken established and put the weapon spin on it. So the first, I would say, Soul Calibur 1 and 2, if you talk to any hardcore fan like us, well, at least Drew and I, we would all argue that the first two are the best in the series. And then Namco, I don't know, man. They kind of lost their edge. I think they're just trying to appease too many people because, back then fighting games were a very select few games that appealed to a certain select few crowds, right? So,
I really want to check out Soul Calibur 6, but I'm just waiting for a price drop on it.
Yeah, and I heard it's kind of broken and online sucks, so they release garbage these days anyway. Just stick with 1 and 2, emulate them for game preservation or find a copy, play it that way. It's the best way to go. But, Soul Calibur, they had the guard impact system and then the combo system and the super move system and guest characters. It's like, dude, just let me play as my samurais, ninjas, and assassins and nunchaku dudes, and let's memorize all of their stances. I used to know all of Maxi stances, dude. I knew all of them. I knew all of Ivy's stances. I knew all the timing,
and he has a lot too, right?
Oh yeah, there's his back stance, his front stance, his left and right swing stances. Ivy has, I think, 5. I still remember a majority of them, and he could only access certain moves through others. So if you wanted to get to Ivy stance C, you had to perform a string that went from A to B. And then that's the only way you could get to C. So it's very.
I had no idea it was that complex.
It's a deep game, but only certain characters are that way.
Yeah, Ivy and Maxi are the two most technically superior characters, and then
Voldo's really.
Yeah, Voldo. He's the weirdest. He's the hardest to use, but I've seen some crazy people do some really cool shit. And on an interesting note, there was this dude. I'll never forget what he looks like, and he works at Costco. I think his name is James. And I remember
we have a name.
Always hovering around Soul Calibur, and he was like me of the Soul Calibur realm in that arcade. No one could beat that guy. And I remember running into him at Costco. I'm like, dude. He goes, excuse me? I'm like, you used to play at Timeout in the Milford Mall and play Soul Calibur all the time. He goes, oh my God, dude, you remember? I'm like, yeah, man, you were really good at it. He goes, great, thanks, good to see you.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a small world.
Exactly the same. He looks identical. He's aged a bit, obviously. That was 20 years ago, but he still looks pretty much crazy.
Huh.
So did all this stuff with these fighting games come naturally to you?
What it really was, it was just tons of practice, dude. I remember when I had Tekken 2 on the PlayStation, and the memory card I'm sorry, not the memory card. The memory card saved, but the game had a stats page. and I had over like 1,000 or 1,100 plays with Yoshimitsu. He took up like 98% of my character usage stat, and I had over like hundreds of hours clocked into that game. So really, that just came with practice. That's really all that was. It was just sticking to something and practicing it to death, and that's where the skills came from. And then, of course, playing with the arcade crowd, talking with them, and just getting strats from people or just losing to people really taught you a lot. So,
I feel like that's it. It's about taking that punishment of playing another player who's better than you.
Oh, that's how you
learning
learn,
from it, and that's really it. It's either that or just practice, and I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, it's just sticking to it and learning the nuances, and that's why I love those games so much. There's so much depth to them. Even though on a surface it's like left punch, left kick, right kick, great. It's like, nah, dude, try this out. And combos come from that, and strategies, and buffering, and reversing. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Really
So Damian, Drew and I are very curious to hear about your sprite background. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the other half is I went to community college in Norwalk, Connecticut, Gibbs, and I have an associate's degree in graphic design. But that's literally just a piece of paper. The way that all started out was there was this interesting thing called Mugen, and that's where it really all started from. And for those I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with it or the listeners here, but it is essentially a 2D fighting game engine to where you could rip any sprite and program it a certain way. So you could have any character fight any character from like any 2D game, like Ryu from Street Fighter 3 could take on Chun-Li from Street Fighter 2 in a Mortal Kombat background with like custom music and custom motifs, which is like the Street Fighter stuff, right? So I found out about Mugen by accident, and as I like to say, the best things happen by whim. And I went to this community, and all the releases that I saw, all the artwork for the characters kind of sucked. I was like, dude, people are like doing these really good creations, but their artwork is terrible. So let me try and do some custom portraits for these things. And I started sharing them on the Mugen Guild community, and about 8 months later, like I was the guy to go to because I just kept doing it over and over. And just like
I remember
Tekken,
that,
right? Yeah, with Tekken, it's all about practice. So with this sprite work, it's all about practice. And that was more or less getting my feet wet into image correction and image quality. And that just bleeds into everything I do right now. So
the amount of hours that you spent doing this was just insanity, right?
Well, you think that was a lot then, dude. Like what I'm doing now, like a common day, let's just say Monday, right? I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. No fabrication or stretch. That is really what I did. I wake up at 4:30. I would immediately come down here to my station and I would load up Photoshop. I would be on it from like 4:45 till about 9:30, and then I would prep my stream, and then I would stream from like maybe 10:45 to 4, and then I jump back on Photoshop for another 2 hours. So, and I've been doing that for like about a month and 2 weeks right now, and it's really feeding into everything I'm doing. And I love to have things look extra sharp, and the reactions I've been getting from people have been great because it really is hard, tedious work, but I do it because I love it, and I genuinely love seeing people's reactions and sharing with them.
Well, I mean, you like ever since I've known you, you've always been extremely meticulous with everything you do, whether it's something on Mugen with your sprites or the condition that you keep your controllers in, your games in. Like where did that meticulous nature come from? Have you always been this way, or is this something that gaming helped cultivate? Or
it works both ways. Gaming always cultivated that. I've always it all started actually with action figures. Like I started playing with all my Ninja Turtle toys and everything, and I realized at first I wasn't really taking good care of them. So when the Terminator action figures came out, I was playing with them, but I was keeping them in good shape because not only did I love the Terminator films and idolize Schwarzenegger, but I wanted to preserve them in a way. So it stemmed from that. But gaming wise, which is hilarious, is Kevin, my cousin. I remember the only way I played Super Nintendo, now that I think about it, was over his house when I visit my grandmother every few months. So I remember holding his controllers, and you know how like you get in an intense game and your hands start sweating, right?
Yeah.
Your hand sweat starts caking up in the controller's seams, and I started getting like grossed out at just how much
hand cheese.
Like hand cheese was caked up in a Super
Jam
Nintendo
hands.
controller. Yeah, the hand jam, whatever you want to call it. So I remember going home and I started opening up my controllers and cleaning them, and it all started from that. And that just kind of transcended into everything I do. I've always been a neat freak in a way. Like I'm rough around the edges in a few spots, but as far as like taking care of my stuff, I've always prided myself in that. But that does bleed into my gaming endeavors as well as my graphic endeavors.
I remember using like a toothbrush to clean those crevices. Works very well.
Yeah. No, dude. I would literally like open up a Super Nintendo controller, place everything to the left that was inside it, and I would get like a washcloth, rubbing alcohol, and like a box of Q-tips, and just I would say every
go to town
3 or 4 months periodically, I would clean all my stuff out, and it was interesting because I don't know if anybody could relate to this, but when you held a dirty controller and then you held a new controller, whether it's your own or not, like you would feel
night and day.
Way, absolutely.
It's something that I can kind of identify with too, because I've been collecting a lot of used equipment over the past couple of years, and I'll go to a store, I'll go to like a Goodwill, and I'll go to Will's Good, and
hey, I'm open 24 hours.
And I'll find a great deal. Like maybe they'll have a PlayStation controller, for $3, and it's like, all right, well, how can you pass that up? These controllers are not going to exist forever, so I might as well give it a good home. But you get it home and it needs to be cleaned. And
it's fucking cruddy.
Sometimes they just need a little bit of a dusting. Sometimes they're like really gross, and if it's really gross, I won't even bother. But if it's
torch the damn thing,
right. So. Like I have a shelf of games that I got from one of my online buddies, Samfis. If you're listening, thank you. I still got those games, and
you're welcome.
Samson, Samfis with a PHIS.
No, I heard you correctly. I just
okay.
Say Samson.
All right. Well,
Samfis.
Anyways, Sam hooked me up with some great Nintendo titles and some PlayStation titles, and he had gotten them from I think a yard sale or something, and half of the NES cartridges say the person who owned them previously, they wrote on it with a marker, and it's
Sean.
James Leonard. James Leonard, if I ever find...
come on. Why do you have to put your full name?
His first and last name. So this guy, if I ever meet him, I'm going to have words with him. But anyway, I've been little by little just cracking them open, cleaning them out. It's a process.
Oh, it is. I've spent hours.
It's gotta be satisfying though.
It is, but it's like I want to spend more time doing it, and it's hard to like I do a couple and then I won't touch them for months, and then I'll come back and it's like there's still 25 that need to be done. I'm like, oh god. So Damian, if you have any spare time, you want to clean some controllers for me?
I'd love to.
He's got like a whole toolkit at this point.
Dude, I'm looking at it now. I have an entire, those IKEA, those collapsible black containers you could buy, the black boxes.
Yeah.
I have one full of like at least 3 of each controller, ranging from NES all the way to Dreamcast, and they're all in like.
I've got some PlayStation controllers that need to be cleaned. I've got a couple Dreamcast ones. The Nintendo ones I cleaned out. I think I got them all. Anyway, we'll talk about that offline.
yes, we will.
So
I'll cut you a deal.
Yeah.
Damian, how do you? Drew and I are very curious. How do you stay so consistent with streaming and your sprite work? Is there kind of a secret behind this?
Well, it's funny. There's one thing I'll say, kind of jokingly. There's a streamer, Wish You Luck. He's very abrasive. A lot of people say he's a dick, but I really like his outlook on stuff, and he's very skilled. He does a lot of Fortnite. He was really good in Destiny, but he says there's 2 secrets to all of this, and the first secret is don't reveal all of your secrets. And then he pauses for a second, and he goes, "Did you guys get that?" But I don't know. There's a few things I do that I'll keep to myself, but it's just I don't like to cut corners, and I don't like to do a shit job. I think that's really what it boils down to. It's a passion I have to retain a certain level of quality for myself. And
would you say it's fueled by Red Bull or White Monsters?
Well, actually, yes, both of them. I have a Red Bull right when I wake up, and then I have a Monster right around the sugar-free type. The
Cat's out of the bag.
Yep, I have one at least around like 10:30 right before I start, so I'm nice and snappy.
A little caffeine.
Just a little, 400 milligrams. It won't kill anybody.
But I mean,
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I remember you spent a lot of time talking about streaming, and it just seemed like it was something that you wanted to do, but you were never really ready to jump in.
Well, I was discouraged. Yeah.
And then just out of nowhere, you're like full bore, 100%, you're streaming, you're doing the sprite work. And what was it that lit that spark for you?
Well, the spark was lit recently, but it all started about a year and a half ago. I bought a really wicked, awesome PC. I upgraded the shit out of it. I sold you some of the parts out of it. And
using it right now, buddy. Thank you.
No, it's
I remember that.
I'm glad to have hooked you up, and I'm glad it works. But I originally bought this PC for, like playing old school games and, playing a lot of Destiny because I was hugely vested into that for a long time. And I was thinking, I'm like, well, I could also stream. And when I was working overnights at A&E, I would sit in the workstations were called pods, and I actually drew out all of my overlays. I'm like, what would be a good design? How could I do the thing in the corner? So I spent like a good 3 weeks just designing everything. And I sat after work in the morning, because I worked overnights again. When I get home, I'd spend a few hours every day creating templates for these streaming overlays. And I tried to get into streaming a little bit, but, I was doing like Contra and Destiny, and I wasn't really getting any viewers outside of fucking viewer bots. I think it was Electrical Skateboard and Electrical Longboard. I'm like, wow, I have 3 viewers, and I was doing it for about a month, and I didn't get anything more than 4. So I'm like, you know what, the hell with this.
Bunch of Craigs.
Yeah, I'm gonna shelf it. It's just bots, blah blah blah. So it was always in the back of my mind. It always fascinated me because streaming really is reaching out to people, right?
Well, I mean, Drew, I think you could agree with me. I remember you and I and the rest of us being very anxious for Damian to start.
Yeah, well, I mean, from my point of view, like I saw you, taking the time to Photoshop these great overlays. And for somebody that hasn't seen Damian's stream, was it twitch.com/Saikoro _plays?
Twitch. Saikoro _Twitch. Yeah,
sorry, okay. So
no, it's all right.
So if you haven't, go check it out, and you'll see that depending on what game he's playing, like there tends to be a different look on the screen, a different overlay.
Yes. And that actually kind of happened by accident, because at the time, I was just doing Destiny, and I actually commissioned this really good artist, Young Khan. He's a bit flaky, but his work is stellar. I like his overall presence.
Way to throw him under the bus.
Well, no, dude, the thing is I messaged
flaky
this guy.
fuck.
I've messaged this guy 3 or 4 times saying, hey, dude, I'm really sorry it's been a while, but, could you please get back to me on something? And I did that 4 times, and he just never replied. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. I'm sorry. I love your work, but I don't appreciate that. I appreciate you, but I don't appreciate your attitude. So
right.
There was I got the idea when I was overnight, and I thought, like, there was a technical difficulty screen from The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 3, and I'm like, what if that was Cade? So I had him draw it out, and I had that a lot when I was playing Destiny. But I noticed it was too one-dimensional. I'm like, well, what if I play games other than Destiny? So I started making other screens, and I'm like, these are looking really good. What if I did them for every game? And the thing is they're pretty easy to make, depending on your perspective. And I could make one in maybe 2-3 hours, and I could just throw it on the screen and give a really cool and very appealing visual flair to the stream. And that's the thing. Not a lot of people do that. People are more about, I want to have growth now. I want to have viewers now. Hey, I'm playing Fortnite. I need to grow. It doesn't work like that. You need to be unique, and it all stems from that.
I feel like it comes very natural. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Drew? Like, I feel like he doesn't seem like a new streamer.
No. No, not at all.
Whatever he was doing behind the scenes worked.
Well, yeah. I think, your personality is coming through very much as it is in like our discussion right now. You're a very chill, laid back, but energetic person, and you're letting that come through in your stream. You're not trying to be somebody that you're not.
Well,
passionate.
Exactly. And, it's all about being yourself. And I learned that when I was a personal trainer years ago. It's all about just like, knowing people, listening to them, and just being yourself. And that could transcend to anything. But, really what started the whole stream thing was in July. This past July, like 4 or 5 months ago, my buddy Winter Siege. I don't play Destiny much, thankfully, because now I'm into variety and doing all this stuff.
God bless.
But,
yeah, so you've moved on from Destiny.
Finally, I dropped the crack, boys. The addiction.
God bless you.
It's still very good, but it's the variety is really what's kicking it off. And rewinding to July, I was playing, Destiny with Winter, and, he just started saying, his name's Spencer, by the way. Spencer's like, yo, dude, you're playing a lot of Destiny. Why don't you just start streaming it? And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. I was discouraged last time when I tried it, and he's like, dude, just fucking do it. Just start it up, start streaming, start doing your thing, and just give it time. And I'm like, you know what? I think I am. And he literally, kicked me in the nuts by saying that. So within a week, I pretty much dusted all of the digital dust off of my files, and I just started making them work. And I made them pretty intelligently because they're really easy to modify and edit, and I could just make things on the fly, really snappy.
Right. Now that you have basically your source files, your B-roll, if you're in a video section.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it sounds like he had a large hand in the spark, in the fire that was lit.
Yeah, he was, I mean, you guys are fucking awesome. You encouraged me very well. But, there was this, I was like, I don't know. And he's just like, dude, just fucking do it. So I'm like, okay.
Sometimes it's good to hear from somebody you don't really know because, like, you're kind of too close to the advice, I think, when you're getting it from your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because, you say it feels very natural. I've actually found that, like things have improved and things have become even more natural. You're always live and you always have to be, snappy and, like just alert for people. But it all just organically grows. Like, everyone's like, oh, how did you start? It's like, well, I just kind of did. There's no real way to quantify that. You just, you start somewhere and then you begin,
It kind of blossoms.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happened with my overlays. I'm like, well, if I did an overlay for, say, I don't know, Destiny, like, what about I'm playing Resident Evil? Let me do a Resident Evil thing. And if I'm doing Resident Evil, I'm going to play Resident Evil 2. Let me do something for that. And now it's literally become habit for me to make something custom for what I'm playing for the week. And people love it too. Everyone's like, oh my God, this looks really good. Where did you get that? I had somebody on Twitter ask me, hey man, who does your graphics work? Because it's really good.
Yeah.
Like,
me, motherfucker.
Yeah,
me.
I do all my own work. And I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy, So it's been an interesting past 4 months. Things started slow, but they're really, really picking up. And I'm loving every second of it, man. I do this all because I love it. I wake up early every day and bust my ass because I love this stuff.
And that's important. You can't fake it, especially when you're on camera or on a microphone. It's very easy. Like you can fake your way through a 9-to-5 job if you have to, because you don't have to be a sparkling personality. But when that camera is on, or right now, like when we're recording, this microphone is on, like you have to be 110%.
You have to be alert and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Beer number 4. Well, maybe the beer is part of my charm. I don't know. I haven't really determined that yet.
I can co-sign on that.
Yeah. So Damian, you started out with Destiny. Now you're you've moved on to retro games a little bit more frequently. You're peppering in some newer stuff. Why did you stop Destiny?
Variety, man. And it all started because I was playing Destiny and I started getting some viewers and I'm like, you know what? Halloween's coming up. It was this past Halloween. And I started thinking, I'm like, I can't really keep playing the same thing. Nothing's really happening here. So since it's Halloween, what about spooky games? So I'm like, well, my favorite spooky games. Let's see, Resident Evil 1 and 2, Half-Life 2, and such and such. I'm trying to think back, but I'm trying.
What a trailer you too. Tell us about that trailer.
Oh my God. So that's how it all started. I'm like, well, if I'm going to do a variety month, and the thing is, I'm noticing my Twitch streaming is happening a lot like my introduction to games, right? Like I was introduced to Nintendo and all that stuff, and then it was like Genesis, Super Nintendo,
right.
PlayStation, etc. So I find that like my streaming path is going the same way. So, even though I do focus on retro-centric stuff now, it's more in the varietal sense, and that really came into its own with Halloween. And I designed a calendar for it, and then I'm like, well, if I'm doing variety for this month, like I should keep this going. And that's when I noticed viewership started kicking up. Like it's been, it's been slow, not a trickle, but it's been gradually growing.
Right.
And I thank the Halloween month for that. And it really does feel like I play games just to stream, but that's where I focus all of my energy now, and I'm fine with it. So
yeah. Well, I think as long as you're playing a variety of things, and you're never really losing out on the experience. I feel like when you're focusing strictly on Destiny, or you're focusing strictly like people that only play Fortnite or whatever it is, whatever's hot at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like it just becomes habit, and then there's really nothing else to it. And for me, like, that's not interesting. Like, I didn't mind tuning in once in a while and watching a Destiny stream, but I don't want to watch that same thing every day. I'm there for the personality.
Absolutely. And that's what really sets it apart. It really does. The personality.
And you've got it, man.
No, thank you. I am humbled by that, dude. Like
I don't know about you, Drew, but I'm inspired with Damien's consistency and.
Well, I've tried streaming, and it is difficult.
Dude, there are some days. There are some days, I'm not gonna lie, it felt like I ran a marathon. Like I'll go upstairs at like 7:30, and God bless my woman, she's the fucking best. She fully supports me. Like I'll sit down and like I'll be, we'll be there like on our phones, right? That's our personal time. Like
decompress.
I feel like I ran a marathon. So on camera, like, or even here on a podcast, like, it sounds easy. It's not. And that's what a lot of people do not understand. Like, for instance, you were talking about everybody's playing Fortnite. Don't get me wrong. Fortnite is very good. It's not my cup of tea. I don't really like it, but it's not terrible either. But if 1,000 people are playing Fortnite, number one, not only are you going to get lost in everybody else playing it, but it becomes homogenized. It really does.
Like milk.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Homogenized. Even milk has an expiration date, guys. But
I'm in a Facebook group for Mixer, which is an alternative to Twitch, right?
Mm.
And there's a lot of people that are on there who are streaming Fortnite, and then in the same breath, they're like, "Oh, I'll do follow for follow. I'm not getting any followers. I'm not getting any viewers. What's going on?"
Empty number.
It's follow for follow is an empty number, first of all, and secondly, you're playing the same game that everybody else in Mixer's playing.
Yes, absolutely, and that's where the variety really took form, is because people are like, "Hey, he's doing something different," and that's the thing. You need to stand out in a certain way, and that's why I like to cover all my bases, because number one, not a lot of people do the graphical assets that I do, and I'm not saying that to like toot my own horn or say, hey, I'm better than everybody else, but it's the fact that not a lot of people put that effort in, and it really, really shows in your visual production, and that's what I always find very important.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes things to the next level. It makes you stand out, I think, in a different way. So I mean, it sounds like you've kind of found your niche with Twitch and with streaming and everything. Have you ever done like a live stream of your creative process, or is that one of those secrets you kind of want to keep?
Well, no, it's not necessarily a secret. It's just like people, when you tune in to Twitch and you want to watch a creative outlet, like Young Khan, for instance, like he has a stream set up to where he does work on his tablet. People would rather watch you draw something from scratch rather than tediously edit image pixel. So I thought of doing that, and I've actually talked to a few people about it, and we kind of agreed on how, it's good to be creative in the creating something from scratch process as opposed to, editing.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, is that something you ever considered, like getting like a Wacom tablet or something like that?
I don't know. The thing is even when I drew like a long time ago, like from at least like the 6th grade till about like high school, I could only really draw what I saw. I couldn't really draw from scratch.
Right.
And that transcends into what I'm doing now, because I like to take something and improve upon it, or kind of take my own spin on it. And that's why, like, for instance, the sprite work I've been doing, which it's interesting because I'm spending all this time on it. It's actually going to turn into like badge work and like commission work. But I'd rather take something that looks cool and be like, hey, it doesn't have this element. What could I do with it? So I take what's existing and then I just make it my own.
To kind of paint a picture for our listeners as to what, exactly you're doing, you're taking, like, for example, something that you showed me recently was an advertisement that you did from a magazine, and you switched the elements of it. So I think it was the one with the TV.
Yes.
I remember that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I still have that, and I reposted it because now I have more traction and more people are seeing it. Now, an interesting thing is Twitter has analytics on it, right? It shows you how many times your image was engaged in, or whatever your post was engaged in. Like all the more popular stuff I've done, the analytics, there's, let's see here. What is it called? Hold on. Fast. I'm just looking for the proper terminology for you guys.
Yeah.
But it's called, let's see here, right here. So you have what they're known as impressions.
Yep.
My more popular ones, dude, like no joke, like they're between like 1,200 to 2,500 impressions. Yeah. And I'm like,
Jesus.
Holy shit. I'm like, wow.
You get it, like with social media, it's a great thing because you can have something that maybe you're only getting 1 or 2 likes on immediately, but if it's coming from somebody who's like an influencer,
yes,
they're gonna have reach. So every time somebody, like, if I like one of your posts, that shows up in a feed for anybody that's following me. Now I only got a couple hundred people, so that's going to be a drop in the water for you. But if somebody that has tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers hits like or hits retweet, that's going to blow up huge.
Yeah, because all of their followers are going to see what they liked, and they're going to see what you did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like I've been kind of watching social media and how that all works, and
I think it takes a certain individual as well, such as Damian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Meticulous is the key word.
Yeah, dude, and you were saying, the thing I recently did, one of them I posted it, I think, a couple of days ago, and I was completing a full Contra sprite set. So just to give you the idea, it originally started with, let me do a few sprites, and then I'm like, well, what if I want to be more dynamic in posing these things? Because it's like when I used to play my action figures, right? You had a play sets, and then you would pose your figures a certain way, and you would play with them, and you'd use your imagination. So that is like exactly what I'm doing with pixels. So for instance, Contra, I'm like, well, I got to do all the animations. So I started ripping the sprites out because the thing is when you download a sprite sheet, it's only one layer, meaning everything is just on one page. So you can't just pull one thing. And I don't like that. So I'm like, well, I need everything, at least for what I'm looking for. So for Contra, I liked the way the character looked, but his legs looked weird. So I'm like, well, let me see what else I got. So I saw Super Contra, and I'm like, well, the legs look better, but the torso looks like, all right. So I took all the chest sprites from Contra 1 and I put them on the leg sprites of Contra 2. And that led to all these different sprites that came out. And they're actually really cool looking. Like, it looks like one of them is ADSing, or aiming down to sight. So it looks like he's literally lifting his gun up to look down to sight. And it looks really cool because it's my own style, but on something that's existing. And it looks like it's its own thing.
Yeah.
Really
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to kind of throw it out there one more time, if somebody wants to take a look at some of the sprite work, how can they find you on Twitter?
It is Saikoro_shares, like share plural, SHARES. I do things on a daily basis because I have such a vast library to pull from now. And, even though now everyone would be like, well, you're just working on sprites, like, why aren't you doing badges? It's like, no, this is going to lead to that. I just got to go through like maybe 3 or 4 more games before the whole is done.
Yeah.
And then
So it's kind of like, it's like an end to a means. Like, you have to do this work for the badges anyway.
Absolutely. But this is just Nintendo, dude. I still got to do other stuff, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
What a busy schedule.
Yeah, dude. It's these past August. So these past like 5 months literally feel like a week. That's how fast time is flying with all the work I've been doing.
So 2 things, Damian. One, I have a request. I'd like to see more trailers.
Yes, you were talking about the Halloween one before you.
Loved it.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Oh my God. Yeah, that.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Getting excited
more,
just thinking about it.
More of those.
Yes.
And second question is, Drew and I were a little bit curious on your custom controller collection and
man.
how it's impacted your gameplay, and would you recommend?
Well, I'll go for the short answer first. Custom controllers, absolutely. If anybody listening here is looking for a very good quality custom build, go to Battle Beaver Customs. So Battle Beaver Customs, all one word.
This is not a paid advert, by the way, although we would love for them to sponsor our show.
Not yet.
Oh,
we will get sponsored soon, guys. Don't worry about it.
All right, cool.
But it's funny because all this really stemmed from Destiny. I joined Twitter because I was randomly invited by Deej, the community manager for Bungie. I ran into him randomly in a game, and boom, I was like, oh my God, I was like a giddy schoolgirl because, back in the day, I played so much Destiny. That's when I joined Twitter, and I was like, you know what, I want my Destiny gameplay to improve. So I went to Battle Beaver Customs. I'm actually holding the controller as I'm talking. It was $250 altogether, but the best part about it is thumbstick tension is increased from the stock 60 grams of the Xbox One controller to 160 grams. And I had like some hair triggers put in, and I did like some basic button whatnot. But it's really good because with the Elite controller, you never have to take your thumbs off of the thumbsticks, and you could use the paddles as secondary buttons. And my gameplay went up exponentially. And then on top of that, I got some BenQ gaming monitors, and that actually improved it even further. Like, I remember my KD shot up by like a 0.4 when I first got these monitors. I was like a 1.5 or 1.4 at the time, and then within like a month, I was 1.9.
So those milliseconds, bro.
Oh, dude, 1 millisecond response time, it's what you want. It's like you're playing on a CRT monitor. There's no input delay whatsoever unless if it's from the game. So, very interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's next level.
Oh, absolutely. And then the Halloween promo I did, now that was the combination of about, I would say, and again, no stretch or fabrication, that was about 15 hours total of editing in 4 days. I was really inspired by the Dead Space attract mode. Now, back in the day, we called it attract mode. Like when you went to an arcade and nobody was playing, like you heard those sounds and the visuals cycle before you put your quarters in. So Dead Space's attract mode, it had their own rendition. And just thinking about it, I'm getting goosebumps. It was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I'm like, well, if I'm doing something with Halloween, this would be perfect. So
freebie.
I purchased Power Director 16. It was on sale for $80. I bought it, and it's a full-blown editing suite, and I got my feet wet with this program just by making that promo. So I timed everything out just right. I broke apart the I broke apart the each scene. You could split your cue in Power Director 16, and then I'm like, well, what rhythm would work really good? And let's see, what games am I playing? So it was Super Metroid, Half-Life 2, Resident Evil 1 and 2, and Dead Space. And I pretty much redid the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star attract mode with my own flare on it, and it came out really
Nice.
yeah.
So, Drew, you notice he said 15 hours, right? Like, I don't even have time to make toast.
It's really crazy too, because like I'm currently going to school for film and TV, so like this editing stuff is what I love to do, and watching that really made me feel like super creative. And then I realized I had a fuck ton of homework I had to do. So
dude, sorry about the homework, man. Damn.
That's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna be on break in a little bit. I'm gonna put that I'm gonna be putting Premiere to good use.
You got some pizza to eat, Drew.
Good.
We got some pizza to eat. Yeah, that's for sure.
I gotta get like an animation suite, because there's a bunch of ideas I want to have done in actuality. But the thing is I can make those in Power Director 16, but that means I need to go frame by frame, and I'm like, no. I need to actually animate properly.
You should check out After Effects.
Okay.
It is incredibly difficult, but it will do everything you'll ever need it to do.
I will look that up.
Yeah, it's worth your time. It's Adobe, and they have an animation program too. I can't remember the name of it, but we'll chat about that offline as well.
Good.
So, all right. So, Damian, we're gonna try something kind of new here.
Lightning round.
We're doing a lightning round. Well, this whole thing.
How do you know?
Well, because somebody put it in the chat. But anyway, so we've never. Well, you're our first interview, but something I'd like to do going forward is a lightning round. Sure. And Will and I have compiled a list of things, some of which are kind of easy. I'm gonna kind of skip around here. What I'm looking for, is one answer, words.
Okay. Blah.
Don't think too much.
Don't think about it. The quicker you answer, the better.
Okay.
And we're just kind of gonna move on. So whatever comes to mind. Some of them is gonna be like either or. And you could be that guy and be the third thing if you want that you make up, and some of them is just going to be kind of a blanket statement, and just come up with the first word that comes to mind, maybe like the first adjective or whatever.
Awesome.
You want to go back and forth, Drew?
Yeah. Let's let me just check the order real quick to see if there's anything that's kind of out of place. I moved one thing already.
Okay.
But we should have done this before, but it got erased by accident, so I think we're good. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, start us off. Ready, Damian?
Word, bring it on.
I don't have any cool sound effects, so lightning round.
All right, Nintendo or Microsoft?
Nintendo
or
games,
Sony.
Not their business practice.
That is, we are not looking for an explanation.
Shit.
We're looking for an answer.
All right, Nintendo on the first one.
Nintendo or Sony?
Nintendo.
Sony or Microsoft?
Sony.
Genesis or Super Nintendo?
Super Nintendo, hands down.
Best Sega console?
Dreamcast.
Mario or Sonic?
Sonic.
One
Mario.
word.
One word?
One word to describe it.
Oh, one word to describe Sonic? Fast.
No, one word to describe Mario.
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 Quickly.
Italian plumber. Italian.
Well, okay, Italian plumber's fine. I'll take it. Sonic.
Fast.
Metroid or Castlevania?
Metroid.
Ryu or Ken?
Ken.
Sub-Zero or Scorpion? This is a tough one.
Scorpion. I told you that guys before. Scorpion's the man.
One word or phrase to describe Street Fighter.
Classic.
Mortal Kombat.
Violent.
Desert Island game.
Oof. Metal Gear Solid.
Hardest game.
Metal Gear Solid, actually. That Liquid Snake fight sucked. God damn.
Easiest game.
Oh, Beatles Rock Band.
Huh.
Best Capcom fighter.
Super Street Fighter. It was the Japanese one. Super Street Fighter 2 Grandmaster Challenge.
Favorite video game character.
The ninja from Metal Gear Solid.
Best Metal Gear.
The first one, Metal Gear Solid, hands down.
Best controller.
Ooh, I would say the Super Nintendo. Because if you look at everything else that came out after it, like the PlayStation controller.
Worst controller.
Oh, Jesus Christ. The Sega Genesis 3-button controller.
First console?
Oh, the Nintendo.
Favorite console.
Ooh, let me think. Super Nintendo.
Any other ones you can think of off the top of your head? Oh, favorite portable.
Ooh, favorite portable would be the PlayStation.
PSP?
Yep, the original.
Okay.
Mm. I feel like you had that before, like anyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the DS, I would say it's better, but the versatility of the PSP is.
Oh, you end on.
You mean the hackability?
Well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, dude, it was so ahead of its time. Like,
Yeah.
people didn't really grasp it, and of course, the DS just blew it away. But technically, the PSP was.
Yeah, the PSP was something special. The battery blew up on mine, and I got to get a new battery.
Oh no,
It was something special.
Oh yeah, the PSP was my favorite handheld because of its versatility. But Drew mentioned Uendon for the DS, and I'm actually looking at my copy right now as I speak. That is the reason I had a DS. Uendon.
Those circular motions.
Oh my god. It's DDR for your fingers while holding a stylus. That's the best way to describe Uendon.
Love it.
God, yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I never got into that game. Well, I mean, I tried Elite Beat Agents, and I know that was subpar, but
I mean, it was good for people who never played Uendon, but man.
Well, technically, it was like a cheerleading.
Yeah, well, it's there's actual people in Japan called Uendon, and they cheer you on. Like, you can look it up on YouTube, and it's ridiculous. But the thing about Uendon is it has such a charm to it and this flair, and it's really the energy. Really, the soundtrack is stellar because it's Japanese, so everything's like syllables. It's not necessarily like words, and that's what really makes it cool and accessible because anybody could play it, and it's so good. I could talk about Uendon for an entire podcast. That's how good it is.
yeah, man. I know. There's so many games that I feel like we could just like open up a can of worms with and just like, all right, let's spend an hour talking about the ins and outs of this.
Easily.
Yes. Yeah, we should do that one.
Absolutely.
Oh, we will.
Breaking it apart like a controller, taking it apart piece by piece.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I got a bunch of controllers that need you to help me with, so.
Break out the kit.
I have my own cleaning kit and everything I put together. I know Damien's got one too, I'm sure.
Hey, Damien, grab your shine box.
That's it! That's it! Make sure he waits here! Make sure he waits till the bar closes!
Keep him here! Keep him here!
Oh, man.
I gotta admit, you were rude. You were rude there. Yeah, well, I was just kidding. You didn't sound like you were kidding.
You insulted him a little bit.
Oh, man. Damien, this was a lot of fun having you on here, man.
What a blast.
It really was, and it didn't really feel like we were talking for so long, and that's the best part about all this. It's really fun, and it's just we really enjoy doing this. And
yeah.
Well, I feel like picking Damien's brain is like story time when you're a kid. Like, you can't wait to do it.
Well, I mean, like, we've known each other, so long. Yeah, so Damien, we met, I think you were in 6th grade. I was in 4th grade?
Yes. That's
wow.
We go way back, and I know you've known Will since high school, right?
Yeah, I think I was just after or like senior year.
Yeah, it was like 2003, 2004. I was working at EB Games.
Yes, yes. See, the Gamer Speak, man, coming out.
Good amount of time, man.
Yeah, so you guys have known each other for a long time too, and it's just there's so much to talk about, and we've like barely scratched the surface.
I know. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, dude, there's so much, like, just so many tangents we could have went on pertaining to what we're talking about. And it's like
Damien's like the Encyclopedia Britannica, volume like 1.
No, what was it? Encarta, the Microsoft library they had.
Oh yeah,
that's a deep cut for you guys.
Oh, that is a deep cut. I had a copy of that too.
Yep,
that was the coolest thing. And
Media
you click on it and play the videos.
How dare you?
I would. I hope that we have an opportunity to have you come on board again.
Dude, I will gladly do so. Just say the word and I'll be here.
Thank you very much, man. And one more time, for anybody that wants to follow you on Twitch, on Twitter, any other social media you have, how can they find you?
Well, on Twitter, I am Saikoro_shares. It used to be Saikoro Destiny, but I moved on from that and I share stuff. So the name is perfectly fitting. Once again, Saikoro_shares. I do stuff on the daily, not counting Sundays because I do need rest. And on Twitch, I do stream 6 days a week, Monday through Friday from 10:45-ish till about 4. And Saturdays, I do a shorter retro-centric stream. Check me out at twitch.tv/Saikoro_Twitch.
And this show's going to be posted with any luck Sunday morning.
Okay, good.
So what do you have planned for this upcoming week?
Oh, dude, I'm doing for the whole month of December. I'm going to be doing a Nintendo-centric theme, and now I'm not going to spoil anything, but the first week will be GoldenEye. That's what I'm starting with on the.
Oh,
beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So GoldenEye, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. I was actually working on the calendar before I will be posting that on Sunday as well. So it'll be a double doozy of this awesome podcast as well as my calendar. So everyone.
hey, work on that trailer, will you?
Yeah, dude, it's I got to plan ahead. I really got to find an angle for that. Trust me, it's been in the works for a while. I just got to focus myself properly.
Love it.
Looking forward to seeing it, man.
Thanks, man. Absolutely.
Likewise.
Absolutely. So this has been a blast, guys. Again, I'm so humbled to be on here. This was great. It's a lot of fun. I hope good things happen here. Actually, no. I hope great things happen here because we really got. You're very welcome. We really got it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Will, if somebody wants to follow you, I'm not sure why they would bother, but if they do, how can they do so?
Yeah, Will_gear on pretty much all platforms, mainly just Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, you've been posting a lot of pictures of a brand new kitty cat too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have. Mars is great. He's a handful and he's exhausting, but I suppose that's with anything that's a baby.
Yeah, get your ass to Mars.
Yeah. You must remember, he's just a kitten.
I juggle kittens.
Oh, God. And if you'd like to follow me for some reason, you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Sionstorm. That's PSIONSTORM. Not Poison Storm. Not even
poison.
Close.
There's plenty
not
of
even
reasons
close
to follow you, man. Get out of it.
I learned the hard way. Drew kind of tackled me.
Yep.
We had a talk. Serious one.
And that's how this podcast started.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. It was like that fight when the kid snaps on the bully in Christmas Story.
Oh my
and starts
God,
swinging his
dude.
arms. That was
boy.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what happened. Anyway,
and I still haven't got the BB gun.
You still have? Nobody has.
You should try out, kid.
Actually, there's one in my parents' house, so you can have that if you like.
God bless.
Shh, don't tell Sega.
Follow the show on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram at WDGR Podcast. That's Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective Podcast. Use those initials. You can find us there. Hit us up on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, TuneIn, or if you're using something like Beyond Pod or Pocket Casts or whatever, just go in the search bar and you can find us that way as well too. Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. We are on Libsyn, which is our host for all of our podcast needs too. Just look for that, WDGRpodcast.libsyn.com. That's like our hub of activity if you'd like to just kind of peruse and see what we've got on there in one shot. But really the best way to find us is right through your favorite podcast app alone.
And it's not the WDGR podcast. Remember, it's an acronym. It's an acronym, not the WDGR.
WDGR, yeah.
And if you have Windows Vista, please update.
Yes.
I will, guys.
For God's sake.
Thank you so much to everybody who's been listening to the show. Thank you for all of your feedback, for all of your comments, your questions, your suggestions. Keep sending them in. You can leave them on our social media, or if you'd like to email us, shoot us an email, wdgrpodcast@gmail.com. Damian, once more, thank you.
Thanks, man.
You took
dude,
2 hours.
What a pleasure.
Thank you. No, really, thank you. But you're very welcome as well, guys. This was a blast. I look forward to being back. If you guys want to have me, this was a lot of fun. My very first one, by the way.
Awesome. We're trailblazers, Will.
Word.
Oh, yeah.
Word.
We are the trailblazers.
I'm in for the long haul.
On that note, everybody, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Have a good night.
Good night.